Ever been so excited to install and play your next favorite masterpiece only to get hit by that not enough storage notification? Well, I think every gamer has been there. Well, it is especially painful for Xbox gamers considering how expensive Xbox expansion cards are. And because of that, USB external storage might be the only logical option. But external hard drive or external SSD? We all know SSDs are much faster than hard drives. But is it actually worth paying extra for the SSD knowing that you cannot play Xbox optimized games from SSD or hard drive anyway? Well, I'm gonna answer all of that today, so stay tuned for that. In this video, I'll be comparing an external hard drive with an external SSD. Well, for the hard drive, I have this pretty standard Samsung 1TB 5400 RPM hard drive, and for the SSD, I have this ADATA SU650 500GB SSD. Also, to make the comparison more fair, I'll be using the same external enclosure for both of them. And in case if you are wondering why am I using internal storage instead of proprietary external ones, well, this is the reason. Well, you might say, well, isn't M.2 SSDs faster than SATA SSDs? But since we do know that, I think SATA SSD is a much fair comparison with a hard drive. And also, I didn't have the budget for a M.2 SSD. That's actually the main reason, I guess. Well, anyway, let's do the comparison and find out, is it actually worth buying a SSD? For the video, first I will talk about the good and bad sides of hard drives and SSDs and why you should get a hard drive or a SSD apart from the speed and other things, you know. And then I'll do a transfer speed test, and then I'll do a game loading time test. So if you're interested in any specific part of the video, you can skip to that. And also, if this video helps and you like the video, then please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It will mean a lot to me. Also, let me know down in the comment section below which console you're using. I'm using an Xbox Series S, and let me know how's your experience with the storage of Series S or Series X. So, well, let's begin. Another thing I kind of forgot to mention is that you cannot play any Xbox Series optimized games from any of these storage. You have to install the games on the internal storage of your console, basically this thing, or you have to install them on a Xbox expansion card. So if you can actually buy the expansion card, I would recommend you to do that. Otherwise, if you're like me, can't afford it, well, we have no choice but to play Tetris with our storage. First of all, hard drives. Well, I guess we all know what hard drives are at this point. They're old, they're slow, and they're cheap. Like, you can get a 2 or 3 terabyte hard drives for the price of 500 GB of expansion card. So I guess you can say they're pretty cheap. But since they are mechanical drives, since they do have moving parts in them, they are more likely to break. So there's no safety here, they're more likely to fail, but you can get more storage for cheap. Then we have SSD. Well, SSDs are relatively newer than hard drives, and they're quite faster than them as well. There's many types of SSDs like SATA, M.2, and NVMe, a lot of them. And a lot of them have different types of speed like Gen 3, Gen 4. Gen 4s are faster than Gen 3. Well, there's a lot going on here. Well, SSDs are much safer than hard drives since they don't have any kind of moving parts in them. But one thing to consider while buying SSDs is TBW. Well, TBW means terabytes written or terabytes writable. Well, basically a SSD have a limited storage that it can write. So basically, like, let's say most SSDs come at around 300 to 350 TBW, which means that you can write 300 terabytes of data in them before you see any kind of performance degradation. So I'd recommend you to get a SSD that has like 350 terabytes or 400 terabytes for this case. Otherwise, it's totally fine. SSDs are much better. And also, SSDs are becoming quite cheaper nowadays. Like a SATA 1 terabyte SSD will cost you the same as 1 terabyte hard drives. So in that case, SSDs are actually improving. Well, now let's get into the transfer speed comparison. For this test, I have selected 3 games: Sekiro, The Witcher 3, and GTA 5. Sekiro has a size of around 15 gigabytes, which is basically the size of most indie games and Xbox 360 or Xbox One titles. Then we have Witcher 3, which has the size of 50 gigabytes, which is like the average game size. And then we have GTA 5, which is 110 GB. Which is basically becoming the current norm of game sizes. So first we're gonna copy the games from internal storage to external storage, then we're gonna do the vice versa, then we're gonna do an average, and then I'll let you guys know what's the transfer speed for each device for each game. So let's get into that. Okay, so let's start off by moving Sekiro from internal storage to external storage. And here the SSD video is running on normal speed, while the HDD one is running on 5 times speed. Now this is a trend that you will see throughout the video, because otherwise the video will be 2 or 3 hours long and nobody wants to watch files copy for 2 or 3 hours unless you do, and in that case let me know and I'll upload a video like that. So in case of Sekiro, it took 47 seconds on SSD and 4 minutes on HDD. Now let's do the vice versa and see how much time it takes. And doing the vice versa, it takes only 6 minutes and 30 seconds for SSD and 26 minutes for HDD. And from this we can pretty much say that the time kinda depends on the receiving storage. Now let's talk about the difference a bit. Now on first case on Sekiro, the time difference between HDD and SSD was 2 to 3 minutes. And then on Witcher 3, it was 7 to 10 or 12 minutes. Let's say on average it was 10 minutes. And then on GTA 5, the difference was 15 to 20 minutes. And as you can see, the time difference grows exponentially. So the bigger the file, the more time it will take and the more difference there will be. So in my opinion, if you don't like to wait, definitely SSD is the way to go. Now let's do a loading time comparison, and well, as I've said earlier, you cannot play any Xbox Series optimized games from the external hard drive or external SSD. You need to have the expansion storage, which is why I'll be playing Sekiro, which is the Xbox One title, and it was not optimized for Xbox Series console. And well, here's the time difference. So I guess the results speak for themselves. Like both in transfer speed and in game loading speed, SSD was much faster than hard drive. And the time difference also was quite huge. It wasn't just 1 or 2 minutes. In some cases it was like 15 to 20 minutes difference. So I guess you get the idea. Now if you're in the market to buy an external storage for your Xbox, then my first recommendation would be to go for the expansion card. You get to play all the games from there. But if you can't, go for an external SSD. And if you don't have that much of a budget, what you can do is what I just did. You can buy an internal SSD for cheap, then use the external enclosure with it. Buy a good enclosure and it will serve you well. So my recommendation would be to go for the SSD. Don't bother buying a hard drive now. So well, that's it for today, and I hope I was able to answer all of your questions. And if you enjoyed the video, then hit the like and subscribe button. It will mean a lot to me, and well, see you guys in the next video.